All right, shalom, shalom. I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachak Wadash. Double honor to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who rule well and who teach well. Much peace and mercy to the hopeful elect. You brothers and you sisters, wholeheartedly waiting upon the Lord Yahweh to send his only begotten son, Yahweh Shai, to deliver us from this captivity. To you, shalom. So this video is going to be, this video is going to be titled, You Have to Unplug to Replug. And this is actually a title that I got from one of the brothers. You know, we were just talking in the spirit, you know, exhorting one another, and you know, that phrase came up within the talk. You have to sometimes you have to unplug in order to replug, you know. And you know, I'm not gonna make this too long, but I just wanted to speak on it because, you know, there's things that within this truth. One second, precept just popped in my mind. Yep. You know, in this truth, there are times when, you know, you are on fire. You're on fire. Things is, you know, spirit is moving. You know, you're doing your lessons, you're reading, you know, studying, things like that. And then you'll have days where, you know, you just kind of, you know, cold. You might not read. Might not read as much. You know, you might not go over all of your notes as much. You know, but that's the balance. You know, the scriptures talk about a balance. You know, having a just weight. You know, when you read Proverbs 11 and 1, it says a false balance is an abomination unto the Lord. You know, and that goes with like money. You know, but you can also associate it with your life, balancing your life. You know, it says a just weight is his delight. So when you have balances, you know, you put one thing on one balance and then you put something that is equivalent to that weight on the other balance. And if it weighs evenly, that's a even balance. You know? So, you know, what Jig would do back in the day, and this is a side note, they altered the balance so that one side was heavier than the other, or they have diverse weights. You know, you have like a 5-pound weight, or not even a 5-pound, like whatever measurement they use. You know, it'll say one thing, but it may be lighter or it might be heavier than what it says, so they could ultimately cheat people out of their money or their resources or whatever. So, but in this context, a balance within your life. You know, you can't have too much going on in the spirit and then you neglect the flesh. You gotta balance it out. You gotta balance it out. You know, if you just constantly in the spirit, all, you know, just reading, you're studying, which is good, but you're gonna burn yourself out. You gotta balance it out. You're gonna have days where you might just be, you know, you might read one chapter, you might study a couple notes, go over a couple breakdowns, you know, watch a few videos, but then majority of the day is just folly. You might be watching movies, watching TV, you might be just out in the world, you know, not abusing it. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with balancing your life. If you know you got too much going on in the spirit, balance it out with good things in the flesh. You know, you might go to a little bar, you might go to a pub, a little pool hall, you know, whatever it fits your spirit. As long as it's not wicked, as long as it's not going off, you can balance out your life with the necessary things to appease the flesh. So I got a few scriptures that I'm gonna start with. This is I'm gonna start here. 2 Ezra 14 and verse 14. It says, let go from me mortal thoughts, cast away the burdens of man, put off now the weak nature, and set aside the thoughts that are most heavy unto thee, and haste thee to flee these times. So, we all have the burdens of man, right? We're all in this flesh. There's some burdens you're just gonna have to bear, and then there's times where, hey, as it is written, you cast your burdens upon the Lord take care of you. But there's certain things you have to do for the flesh, man. You gotta eat, you gotta drink, you gotta sleep. Brothers should be getting sleep, man. Stop getting 1 to 2 hours of sleep thinking that you can just keep going. It's gonna catch up on you. Get your rest. I say 6 to 8 hours, and if you really have a good diet, you're eating a lot of fruits and vegetables, 5 to 7 hours, you'll be sufficient with 5 to 7 hours of sleep. But yeah, the burdens of man, they're the different things that we gotta pay our bills, if you have a family, you have to take care of your family. So there's certain things you have to do in the flesh, and if you neglect those things, it could off balance you even more, man. Because you're the spirit is one aspect of life, and then the flesh is another aspect. You see? So you have to find the balance between those two, and when you find that balance, that's what happens. That's when you start to, okay, well, I know I can read this many days in a row, study this many days, whatever. But then I know after that, okay, I'm gonna go to a park, go walk a nature trail or whatever. You might go to a little bar, get a little drink, watch the baseball game or the football game, whatever sports you like, hockey, whatever, man. As long as it's sufficient for you, so that you can continue in the spirit. You want to continue fighting in the spirit, abounding in the spirit. But just like exercising, you go to the gym, you've been pumping the iron, you're doing 3 sets each, 15 reps, you in there pumping iron. You can only pump iron for so long before your muscles just give out, man. At some point, you're gonna be, okay, I can't do anymore. It's the same thing in the spirit. You can go as hard as you want to. You can be reading, you can be studying, you can be going into the history, whatever. But at some point, you're going to fatigue. You're gonna fatigue out. So you have to balance it with other things. And it's cool. We're in the flesh. The scriptures say, let's go there real fast. In Ecclesiastes. Let's see, Ecclesiastes. Oh, thank you. Turn the lights on for me. Let's see. Ecclesiastes chapter 12. And it's a lot. Verse 12. It says, and further, by these, my son, be admonished of making many books. There is no end, and much study is a weariness of the flesh. It says, when you look into that word study here in the KJV Bible, it says reading. You see, so it says, and much reading is weariness of the flesh. So when you're reading a lot, like I said before, it's cool. You can have that streak of you just reading and reading, But then there's gonna become a time where you're gonna get weary. So what? You balance it out with things within that'll appease the flesh, right? So, motherfucker, he said, I'm gonna squeeze through this little space. That's crazy. But so let's go to 2 Corinthians 13:5. Examine yourselves whether ye be in the faith. Prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how that Yahweh Shai HaMashiach is in you, except ye be reprobates. So you got to examine yourself. You know, examining yourself comes in a lot of different areas. This nigga boy. You can't make this up. Examining yourself comes in a lot of different areas. You know, you got to examine yourself in the spirit. That's why it says, lest ye be reprobates. And you have to also examine your flesh, your actions, how you conduct yourself, you know, in the world. Yeah, man, that kind of just threw me off a little bit. Goddamn dude, it's always Esau too. You got this big ass truck, and you trying to squeeze in a parking space where cars are already just. Anyway, so, but yeah, you know, if any other scriptures come to mind, I'll grab it. But balancing our lives is very important. You know, you don't want to be too involved. You know, you being involved, yes. The Lord even said it. I would rather thou be hot or cold. Let's grab it. This is Revelation chapter 3 verse 15. I know thy works, that thou art neither cold nor hot. I would thou wert cold or hot. So then because thou art lukewarm and neither cold nor hot, I will spew thee out of my mouth. You see? So there's a balance. At the end of the day, you know, you got men who are on fire. And then you got men that's just cold. And then the spirit, it fluctuates. You know, the spirit isn't just this concrete. You know, scriptures talk about it flows like a river, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's Wisdom of Solomon. Is that the 8th chapter or something? Let's see. Wisdom. Right there. If I can find it. If not, then I'll just move on. Let's see. Bear with me 1 second. Yeah, this is Wisdom of Solomon 7. We get the point. Verse 22. For wisdom, which is the worker of all things, taught me. For in her is an understanding spirit holy, one only, manifold, subtile, lively, clear, undefiled, plain, not subject to hurt, loving the thing that is good, quick, which cannot be letted, ready to do good, kind of man, steadfast, sure, free from care, having all power, overseeing all things, and going through all understanding, pure and most subtile spirits. Verse 24, this is the point. For wisdom is more moving than any motion. She passeth and goeth through all things by reason of her pureness. You see? So wisdom, which is likened unto a woman, it says she passeth and goeth through all things. You know? So there's going to be times where, hey, wisdom, the spirit is on you. You know, you flow, I'm on fire. You know, Lord got me on fire. You got videos coming out, you know, and then there's times where the spirit is going to be on other brothers. Now they on fire. Now they videos, you know what I'm saying? Just like at camp, you know, the spirit moves from brother to brother. Might be on the main speaker for a while, and then a point comes, and brother might have a point, and the spirit is on him to bring out a certain point. So it's a constant fluctuation, and you got to follow the spirit. That's why the scripture say walk in the spirit. You know, when you walk in the spirit, you start to understand those things. Okay, right now the spirit ain't on me. You know, it might, hey, Lord might, you know, give me a video topic. I might be able to do a topic, a certain topic or whatever. You do that video, you get a little bit of reading in, and you know what I'm saying, you do what's, you might need to meal prep, you might need to fast, you might need to you know, do your laundry, anything like that. So you use that time to situate yourself within your daily life. You know, and then too, you just might need some entertainment. We're in the flesh, you know. That doesn't mean we are always partying, going to the clubs, going to, you know what I'm saying, we just out in the world. Just, the scriptures say that folly is set in great dignity. Don't abuse the liberty, but do what's necessary for your flesh, so that when the time comes, the spirit gets on you. You can do the work. You know what I'm saying? You're not thinking, oh damn man, I should have went here, I should have did this, I should have, could have, you know. Using your time wisely. And then too, some days you might just fuck off, man. You might just be on. Hey, I noticed that, and this is just me, I noticed that about myself. I could go days of just reading and studying, going over notes and things like that, and then that one day, it'd be that one day, I say with every 2 or 3 months or so, whatever, that's just straight folly, you know. But I'll now, especially after I've noticed that happens, I try to get at least a little bit of reading in. You know, if he's willing, if the Yahweh Shem Yahushua is willing, I'll try to get at least one video done. You know, and then I'll you know, get into my folly. You know, one thing the elder always tells us over here in Detroit: get the work done first, and then enjoy your folly. You know. Because it's a balance. It's always a balance. So I'm going to read this again. Wisdom of Solomon 7:24. For wisdom is more moving than any motion. She passeth and goeth through all things by reason of her pureness. You see? Let's see. It says, for she is the breath of the power of the Most High, and a pure influence flowing from the glory of the Almighty. Therefore can no defiled thing fall into her. See, so she's the breath of the Most High, the power of the Most High. You know, that breath that Adam received, that breath that we received, Revelation 11 chapter, where it says, the spirit of life came from the Most High, and the dead bodies stood upon their feet, an exceeding great army. Roughly paraphrasing it. I believe that's Revelation 11:11. Right? After 3 days and a half, the spirit of life came into them. So, the main message, like I said, I wasn't going to make this too long. The main message is balancing our lives, especially in these times. It's very important. You know, you don't want to get too burnt. You don't want to burn yourself out in either area. You don't want to be in the world indulging in the fleshly things that, you know, satisfy you too much. And you don't want to be over encumbered in the spirit, you know what I'm saying, because you're trying to just pack in as much reading and as much studying as you can every single day, every hour of the hour. You know, there's balance to things, and then the spirit will work with you. If you're sincere and Yahweh Shem Yahushua is dealing with you, the spirit is going to deal. It's going to work. It's passeth and goeth through all things. So I'm going to end it there. I pray this is edifying and exhorting. I want to give all praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh Shem Yahushua, Shalom.